how how they come to me really. So as a midwife in the NHS, I'm kind of around people who sometimes are having birth experiences that aren't as they would choose, or they feel like their choice is taken away. And typically things happen very quickly and it happens very speedily and they feel like they're out of control. And I can kind of, when I'm at the hospital, I can kind of see the person that it's happening to and do the best that I can to support them in that moment, but recommend various things for them if appropriate. But as a hypnotherapist in private practice, people are hearing about me and I'm getting referrals from other practitioners and midwives because women are getting stuck in another pregnancy. So they're not really coping with this pregnancy because of their emotion about the previous birth experience. And typical things, it could be that they were going to have a baby at home and they needed to be transferred into hospital and the ambulance ride really was shocking to them and they didn't really get over that. Or it could be that their baby went to special care and they had a great feeling of detachment and never really got over that and bonded with their baby. Sometimes I've worked with couples who've had different relationships and children with different relationships, and then they come together as a couple and they have a baby and they've both got their own stuff that they're dealing with, as well as what's going on in this pregnancy and what this baby kind of represents and symbolises to them. So, but sometimes the couples come and that can be quite difficult because I kind of need to look after the man and the woman, and they obviously have very different histories and viewpoints. And sometimes it's just the woman by herself. Sometimes we work throughout the pregnancy, weekly or fortnightly, and sometimes it's just a few sessions when they really feel they need some support because it's getting too difficult. And I've recently been working with a couple, she's 32 weeks, and realised that when she's going to have her baby in November, she doesn't know how she's going to do it. It's just too difficult, so we've been working through that. And how I do it, how it works in hypnotherapy, is to understand and listen to the story and the experience, and with trust, to ask them to, in a relaxed state, to watch themselves going through their experience from a distance, so they see themselves sitting and watching themselves doing this that they did, and I don't have to know the details, I don't have to know anything, it's just them going through their experience backwards and forwards. And sometimes it's very difficult to do that because the women can be crying and I kind of, oh, but you know, just keep going, and at the end, and it can take 10 minutes or it can take half an hour for somebody to really go through back and forth, watching themselves doing what they did, and at the end of it they have remembered something positive, and the memory of the trauma has actually faded through the repetition of that. And I've done it enough times now to be absolutely amazed at how brilliant it's at work. And a couple said to me this week, oh, I just remembered how lovely it was to smell his head, and I remembered how fantastic it was to get home. And that was really lovely because she'd had such a difficult time. For her to be able to say there were some really lovely things, and the smell of her baby and the joy of getting home was amazing. So once we've done that, then we can move on to what's happening with this baby and this pregnancy and how they would like it to be, because the ghost of that previous experience isn't so prevalent, it's not kind of interacting so much. But I suppose it's kind of like naming what is the problem, what is the difficulty, and once you can name it, you can work with it, and you can once everybody knows what it is. Sometimes one lady I work with had such a difficult experience at this hospital. She was adamant she could not take another step into the hospital in Taunton. And so we thought, well, and she had a very kind of considerable clotting problem, so she really did need to have a baby in hospital, and she had a cesarean, so home birth really wasn't a safe option for her. Those two things combined, so kind of she sourced a consultant haematologist in Southampton. She organised a flat in Southampton, and they went there and lived in the flat for 2 weeks until she went into labour, went into Southampton Hospital. She had contact with the haematologist and the obstetrician, and she had the most amazing birth. And the fact that she then, 48 hours hemorrhaged, she was okay, but she was able to feel so okay with what was suggested and what was going on. She really didn't want to have a general anaesthetic, so she just didn't have one. And she felt very, very much that she'd made all the decisions, so she could manage her experience because of the work that she'd done in her pregnancy. Although I would say that was definitely empowering for her, and she would describe it as that. So people come either because they're in a pregnancy, either because they've had a baby and they feel like it's just not right, they don't feel happy, or because they're not thinking about having a baby anymore, they're not going to have any more children, but there's something that is just not settled, they're not quite clear, and they're kind of finding out whether it is something. For example, one lady came, she was cesarean 3 years ago, and she's thinking, I don't think I want to have another baby because of what happened, but maybe there's a possibility that I might, I don't know. So we were just thinking, well, how could it become clear to you? How could that decision be made easier? And how could we kind of settle that past birth experience and make it okay, so that she could come to the right decision about her future with her husband? So basically, that's what I think. Have you got any questions? Okay, so I'm just going to introduce Heather, who grew up